Welcome to the Rock the Stage Show. Each week, international media expert Rich Bontrager has in-depth and personal conversations with celebrities, top leaders, authors, speakers, and media professionals. Now, from the Rock the Stage studios, here's your host, the Trigger, Rich Bontrager.
Welcome back, Rock the Stage, Sunday night once again, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Sunday night. Another great show. And we're going to get back into the public speaking area, but we're going to go a little bit deeper, I think, tonight. My guest has a lot of experience in a lot of areas. And in fact, have you ever thought about bilingual public speaking? It's something that people have to do when they travel the world. They have to figure out how to do the translator or flip their tongue and speak the right way, but have the same script, the same story. We might touch on that a little bit here tonight, but public speaking, podcasting, corporate presentations, interviews, scare the daylights out of most people. Public speaking is still the number one fear in all the world. Why? Why are people so afraid of speaking? Maybe it comes down to confidence. Maybe we know what we want to say, but we just don't know how to say it, when to say it. But there is a way to get to that path. There is a way to get confidence, to say the right thing, show up the right way, and be the best version of you. My guest today is a TEDx speaker and executive speaker coach who worked with the highest profile leaders in Spanish and English to fulfill their fullest potential when they speak. She's recognized as America's premier bilingual public speaking coach, and after decades as a corporate spokesperson and media personality in the U.S., Hispanic and Latin American markets, she continues to speak and share and do much, much more. In 2020, she's adapted her coaching model for the virtual stage and created the ZoomScore based on 10 essential elements of professional video meetings to help you shine brighter on camera. And her first book, titled The Joy of Thinking Out Loud, which chronicles her struggle with stuttering, will be coming out very, very soon, but we can't tell you all those details yet. Maybe sometime in 2025. Here once again is Rosemary Ravinal. Welcome to Rock the Stage Show.
Thank you for that very rich and accurate, and I'm humbled by sharing the stage with you, I should say. Rich, thank you for the invitation.
Well, I am looking forward to this because there's a lot of overlap, but there's a lot of juicy stuff that you've been sharing with people that we want to glean and learn for you. So thanks for taking the time to show up and dive into this. What got you into public speaking, first of all? What was the thing that drew you to the microphone or the stage? What got you into that?
It's a long story which has to do with being unable to speak. It started with stuttering, which was the blessing in disguise that brought me to where I am today, and which started me falling in love with the microphone. Let me give you a few little nuggets of that, because as a child, I was traumatized into stuttering, and that became my default method of communication, which was horrifying. I mean, I lived in constant shame. From the age of about 8 to 16, 17, when I was already in college, and I recognized that in order to fulfill the requirements of the major that I had chosen, which was broadcast journalism, I had to do a solo radio show where I interviewed people live on the air. Well, it was a rude awakening because I realized that I needed to prepare for that. But like most things, when you have to take that leap, like jumping out of a plane, it's either now or never. I took that microphone as my calling to say, okay, I can do this. I can do this. This is not a shark about to eat my head. I can do this. And I used a lot of the training that I had received in voice therapy and work that I had sort of figured out on my own in terms of what words to avoid to actually conduct a very cogent and professional interview. It happened to be with the president of the university. So I conquered that. And then I realized, well, it wasn't so bad. I can do this. But obviously, it took a lot more work for me to be able to say I'm fluent and I am a consummate professional when it comes to speaking and representing companies and being a spokesperson for many, many brands, as well as hosting TV and radio programs later in my career. So what brought me into public speaking? It was the need to do it to fulfill my coursework, but it was always a bug that I had. Richie, was almost like I knew deep inside that I had this in me because I would mimic the way people spoke on television. I would role play TV anchors. There weren't that many women at the time that I was growing up, mind you. So there weren't that many role models. But I would look at the cadence of the speech, of the mannerisms, the rhythm of speech, the facial expressions, and
Yeah.
I would try to replicate that privately in my own room, talking to imaginary friends. So that's where it started. It wasn't until really I started working professionally in my mid-20s that I sort of became fully immersed in the world of communication.
Well, we have a lot of commonality in how we got into the business and overcame our stutter, and imaginary friends were a big part of it. They really were. Talking to the TV, talking to the wall, having my dad say, "Be quiet, I'm watching the basketball game," but I was doing the basketball game. So I totally understand that. Did your family embrace that when you were being that creative and trying to learn the pathway of stuttering? Did your family fully say, "We did it"?
No, they didn't. They didn't, and that was really a sad realization that I didn't know at the time, of course, because as a child, you don't know it any differently. But it was a source of shame.
Yeah.
There's a term in Spanish called gaga. To be a gaga, no relation to Lady Gaga, but to be a gaga was something that was not thought of very well. So
Mm.
they kept it under wraps, never acknowledged it, and never sought help for me. I did it on my own, and many teachers did help me and point me in the right direction of therapists. But it was frowned upon. It was something that was unspoken. It was like a family secret.
Oh, yeah.
And so I tried to disguise it because I didn't want to make them feel uncomfortable. I wanted them to be proud of me. I always excelled academically, and I found my wheelhouse in the written word. I was an excellent writer. I was the editor of every newspaper, the high school paper, the college paper, and so I became really proficient at the written word. But it was when it came time to speak that I put the brakes on. But no, my parents were not supportive, and they did not recognize it as something that could be addressed, that could needed help, and it just sort of we went on pretending for a long time.
I love this quote, and thank you for sharing that. Because that really sets up the rest of our conversation here. Because you said communication is the currency of life.
Yeah.
That's powerful when you think about it that way. And coming from a stutter to where you are now, explain that a little bit. How you landed on that, because it really is powerful.
Well, very fundamentally, we need to communicate to survive, don't we?
Yeah.
We need to know, for those of course, there's people who do not have the capacity to speak,
Mhm.
and they have other ways of communicating. But those who are have the full use of their vocal toolbox, we learn from infancy how to ask for what we need. And once we start to ask beyond the essential needs of survival, then is when we start to interact with society, when we navigate the world. Stories tell us a great deal about that. And if we are accustomed to hearing stories, have people reading stories to us, we become more familiar with how to construct sentences, how to construct basically narratives that will help us ask for those things we need in life that go beyond the material. So it's about establishing relationships. It's about knowing how to play, right? How do you play with a child? How do you negotiate differences? How do you share the ball, right? How do you take your turns on the swings? All these things are learned through communication. And then as we become adults, of course, we need to navigate the world of business, right? And the world of being in a community, finding partners, growing a family. And all those things require communication. And very, very often we never really learn. We do it by instinct. We do it by rote, but no one has really taught us how to do it with strategy, with intention, and with understanding that whatever we say has an impact, has repercussions. There's a term which that I'm sure you've heard that the best speech you will ever regret is the one you say in anger. So that
Yes.
right, how many fights could have been avoided? How many disagreements among family? How many Relationships could have been saved if people knew how to communicate better with one another.
Well, now we're getting to public speaking because people don't understand public speakers. They think we just get up and babble sometimes. They think it's all pre-scripted so much that you can't be unpredictable. But what do you think people most misunderstand about public speaking? Because it is so powerful, like you said, but people don't even understand what we do and why we do it.
Right, right. Well, just to touch a little bit on what we just finished
Yeah.
discussing, communication goes beyond the spoken word. Of course, there's always the written word as well, which has to be considered, right?
Yep.
Particularly in the world of business, how people communicate via email is sometimes fraught with all kinds of minefields. But the to answer your question, what people misunderstand is that it is not a performance. And you
No.
don't have to have the voice of an orator, right? You don't have to have, the resonant voice. You don't have to project. You can have a speech impediment. You
Yes.
can have a soft voice. You can have a high-pitched voice. You can have a number of different vocal qualities and still be an effective public speaker because
Yes.
it's about telling a story, sharing information that the audience needs and wants to hear. That's all. It's circular. It's not one way. You could say that acting is one way because you're doing a performance that is received differently. There's a fourth wall. There's a fourth
Mhm.
wall between the actor on stage or even the actor on film. There's a fourth wall. You don't touch the audience.
Right.
The beauty of public speaking in all its different iterations is that there's an audience in front of you, even the audience that's inside that little lens on your webcam.
And that's the key is when you talk to the audience, you want to make it as personal, connect with their heart, not their head a lot of the time. You want to get it so they feel like you're talking to them in a room full of several hundred people, but they feel you're talking to them. Isn't that one of the most powerful tricks of public speaking?
Yes, yes, yes. You can touch one person. You're actually touching everyone. You
Yes.
don't really know. Of course, it's delightful when you have the post speech conversation, hallway conversations. People come up to you and tell you what touched them the most. Receiving that feedback is priceless. But
Mhm.
that's not always why you do it. You may not have an opportunity to receive that feedback. So you do it knowing what your audience needs in advance. You do your research. You take the time to understand who will be in the room, what at what level are they. In other words,
Mhm.
you might be speaking to elementary school children, where adults can have an enormous impact, to inspire, motivate them into thinking, big, big dreams for themselves and aspiring to their goals. And you can be speaking to a room full of PhDs. You speak to them differently. So it's knowing who your audience is, what
Yep.
they need from you, and tailoring your words and your delivery to that particular audience and the occasion.
Now, you are bilingual, but with people with accents, do they struggle with the public speaking more, or is it something that we made a bigger deal on it by trying to make it a big deal?
Yes. Well, bilingual, I wish I was multilingual fluently. I'm only fluent in both Spanish and English, but it gives
Nice.
me a perspective, having worked in this bilingual space for most of my career, it gives me an insight into how and why people struggle when they are tasked with speaking a language which is not their first language.
Right.
And the issues that many of my clients are facing is the belief that they're not going to be understood,
Mhm.
that their accent is too heavy
Yep.
to actually carry understand or have meaning and understanding in an audience. The other is that they stumble with words. It's a sense of fear that they're going to stumble on words that are outside of their fluency. And embarrassment is particularly dealing with people at high levels of power and influence. It's embarrassing. So those are the two factors. Then there's also the idea of translating in your head, right? And
I was going to
having
ask you about that. Yes.
and having context, having a an awkward contextual lack of sort of an understanding gap, that you're translating directly in your head, but you're not interpreting the concept correctly to that occasion or that context where you're at. So it's a factor of first helping people understand that even the worst of accents, if you speak with a certain rhythm, with certain enunciation, with pauses, with greater use of body language, you can convey those same ideas to an audience who may not even notice that you have an accent. Secondly, you need to find the way to interpret those concepts into words that are comfortable for you, so that you don't have to be translating in your head. The other tip is to change the words. If you have a word that's like a 10-syllable word, susceptibility. Sometimes it's that someone is prone to or might suffer from, or you can find numerous basically synonyms, ways of saying the same thing in different words that are much more comfortable to your tongue. As a matter of fact, some of those words that people stumble on are not written by them; they're written by someone else who is not written them for the spoken word. They're written for the text. They're written for a document that's supposed to be read, not spoken. So make it short sentences, make it conversational, make it colloquial. Of course, there will be terminology. There will be, in many circles, science and engineering and such, where there are terms that have to have proper names and have to be used verbatim. But those you practice by breaking it down into syllables. And what I say is take a breath between some syllables. So if it's susceptibility, susceptibility. It may sound a little awkward, susceptibility. That's what we would do, Rich, in stuttering, right? You're going to break up that word that's going to trip you. Break it down into pieces that are easier to say with breaths in between, so that it becomes manageable. It might seem a little bit staccato in the delivery, but you're going to be understood.
But then if you add the body language and kind of do the William Shatner thing a little bit, it will fit. After a while, you can make it part of the routine that helps you be comfortable with you. And that's the biggest part for a lot of people. They don't use their body. A lot of public speakers don't know how to connect the physical body to the mouth. And there is a disconnect, and it even makes it work worse for public speakers, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, there's different schools of thought about use of body language, and obviously, you and I are framed in a way that we can't use our full body in this rectangle. However, even if I'm not showing my hands in the frame, I'm using them. I'm using them to energize my answer to you. So all of that transmits. If you've ever worked with people in telemarketing, in the days when there were live people in doing telemarketing, not bots, they were told to have a mirror and smile when they spoke, when they greeted you, right? They were trained to actually, in some cases, to stand and to use their full body to really bring some real heart and energy into their statements, so that it didn't seem like they were just reading a script.
And it's a game changer, because the phone was one of the worst for me with my stutter. Picking up a blind phone or calling someone blindly I didn't know who was going to pick up, what they're going to sound like, what they're going to do. But I did learn if I walked or talked, the action helped me be in a different mindset. So that's a huge tip that people don't even think about, is what we're doing while we're speaking really does intersect a lot of times.
Yes, it takes, I don't know, it's neurologically what it does exactly. I know I've read a lot of articles about it, but it to some extent, Rich, what it does is it takes a little bit of the focus away from that fear of, oh, there's the word that starts with P that I'm going to probably stumble on. Oh my God, I can't. But you're doing something else. So your energy is dissipating into other actions. So you're not obsessively focused on that word that you hate or that you fear.
And I've used that trick without knowing I was using that trick, so it does work. I'm kind of interested, but you coach executives. You've been around just doing great stuff, but we all have our pet peeves when we work with people. What's your biggest pet peeve when it comes to public speaking or watching them present?
The pet peeve is that they think that they don't have anything worthwhile to say, that their words don't matter, that they're delivering words that are not coming from them. They're in the context of selling a design proposal to a condo community, or selling a proposal to, say, a startup looking for angel investors,
Yeah.
or a creative director at an ad agency selling in a whole new campaign to a major global brand. They're not. It's not their words. They're usually using words that someone else created, and so they don't feel ownership. So it's a sense of, oh, I'm doing this at the service of something outside of myself. And so what I say is, how can you find a way to take ownership of it? I mean, you're clearly the front person, you're the face of these ideas. How
Yes.
can we find a way to maybe inject a story, or maybe give an anecdote about how you see this unfolding in a way that's very personal? Or simply say, you know what, I thought that these words were not really coming from my heart, but then after rehearsing this presentation, I can tell you with conviction, this is the most amazing plan that you've seen this year.
Mm.
And let me tell you why. Right. So there's an element of say confession, but then at the same time, when you put it out there and you own it, just as when you approach an audience and you say, you know what, I just spilled coffee on my shirt, but I had to put this jacket on and see, here it is. But I'm showing it to you because we all have to show our stuff, right? Our
Yeah.
stains. And here it is. But I'm proudly wearing my shirt, and I'm gonna, and then you sort of, right, you get a sense of real connection with people. Hey, I've been there. I know that happened to me not that long ago, and I had to go, and I couldn't change.
Yes.
And all of this is because we're human. And so we have to connect on a human level. And probably those stories and those anecdotes and those moments of real human, let's just say, vulnerability,
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
really just really endear us to people in a
Yeah.
way that no great speech can do. That there rehearse, yes, preparation, rehearsal, practice, of course, but that's what I like to show people is possible. That everybody has something worth saying, that everybody has an idea, a story, something that people will be interested in. Just it's like small talk. How do you do small talk? Nobody wants to talk to me. I don't have the rank. How do I go up to a member of Congress and start a conversation? Which
Right.
is where I was in a setting like that earlier today. Well, you need to learn that you have a connection. Where is that point of connection?
Mm.
Where is that point of convergence between that person's world and yours? And that's where you start. That's where you always start. Where do our lives meet up in a way that starts a conversation that can be of mutual benefit?
I think they're really huge points we're getting here. And because a lot of people think public speaking, like you mentioned earlier, it's the big bravado, it's the big strong thing. We come up like, "Grr," and we even do imitate people we've seen on stage that we admire. We try to get that deep, bellowing voice and just be yourself. And
Right.
people are craving the authentic communicator, I think now more than ever. Would you agree that we're really into this pattern right now of get rid of all the other junk we've had and just be
Yes.
real and talk to me?
Yes. In a way, social media has given us a a, a a standard that's unattainable,
Yeah.
because you and I could spend all day long looking at other speakers, and there's some outstanding speakers. Not that we're not, but some people who, I mean, do I aspire to be Tony Robbins?
Yeah.
I don't know if you do, but the point is that if we start comparing ourselves to other people who have a
Yes.
lot more stuff out there, then we're
Mhm.
going to say, "Oh, I can never." I mean, it's like forget it. But no, that's Tony's style. He's been working at it for 50 years or more, but I have my own style. You have yours, and
Yeah.
that's what makes us special. So if
Mhm.
we start comparing ourselves and looking for that perfection, and by the way, what I've discovered is that perfection is not necessarily attractive. Many people will say, "Yeah, great, she was great. great. She was smooth, she was poised, she was confident, she hit the marks. But then you
Hmm.
might ask that person in the audience, what do you remember about Rosemary's presentation?
Right.
And they may not be able to remember.
It's
If
those
they, right?
authentic moments. It's
Right.
the one that are sometimes off script, or like you said, the blouse and the stain story. Those things are the ones that they actually remember because they do relate, and it also does break the glass of this is a traditional speech. I think people are looking for that. They want to get inside the real stuff, not
Right.
just the superficial, right?
Right, right, and it just so depends so much on how you tailor it. So in terms of your answer to your question, we it's human nature to compare yourself. Particularly, we're in a competitive industry, and people who speak in public, we're out there, we're exposing ourselves,
Yes.
right? It's you're there, sort of, you're solo, right? You're
Hmm.
not. This is not. You don't particularly in on live stages. There's no second take. you know, that's it, right? You're not good. Don't get a second chance. It's not like, oh, wait a minute, I missed my cue. Can I start over again? No, you have to do it. You have to keep going. And similar to trained professional actors on stage who say, the most harrowing first few minutes are the ones when you step on stage and start speaking, delivering your lines. After
Yep.
that, it's smooth.
Yes.
So getting that on ramp that comes from practice, right? You have to do the work, right? You have to put in the time. But once you start, it's like you're gliding. You're in your zone. You're in your lane. About public speaking, it's not about that perfection. It's
No.
about, yes, you have to start on time. You have to give people what they need, and you have to above all else respect them,
Yeah.
respect their intelligence, respect their attention, and
Mm.
end on time, and give them an opportunity to ask you questions and to enrich the exchange, of that time together by giving them the courtesy of asking questions.
There's another quote that I ripped from your material, which I love. Again, real influence begins when you truly see
Yeah.
your audience. It's
Yes.
not stepping up. It's not just having the bright lights and saying, I'm here. It's about your
Yes.
audience, right?
Right, right. It's about really understanding, and in my blog post this week is about using these wonderful sort of ancient indigenous terms, like the Mayans. They have a term for "I see you." The Zulu culture from or Ubuntu have that. Those greetings of "I see you," and you are me, and I see myself in you, which is so simple, but it's honoring the other person and saying we're friends. There's nothing to hide. We are the same. And even if you don't say them, those words or those phrases, you can suggest them in your gaze, in the
Mm.
tone of voice that you use to start your talk. It's in the doing the eye contact throughout, to
Mhm.
scanning the audience and making sure that you've established what I call the butterfly, landing throughout different heads in the audience, and making that instant contact, those few seconds of contact with someone, and giving them that respect. So it's really about them, and showing them that what you're saying is something that's accessible to them, that they can relate to. It's not something way up in some mountain, but something that they can relate to, and finding those stories, anecdotes, references that
Mhm.
they can understand.
Now, May is National Stutter Awareness Month coming on up. You and I both stutter. It's great to have you here on this timely time that we can share this out
Yes.
there. But it's you speak in two different languages. Do you stutter in both languages, or do you have something that turns on and turn off?
To be honest with you, I've always stuttered more in Spanish than in English.
Which
I've
one's
always
your native
stuttered.
language?
I'm sorry, it was my native language, yes, but
What?
I stutter more because it had to do with the way I was brought up, with the shame that
Mm.
I experienced as a child when I stuttered, particularly when I spoke to adults. I stuttered really badly, but again, sometimes it comes out when I get nervous. I know it's coming. It's almost like the tongue gets stuck. I don't know how you feel. It
Yes.
feels like it grew twice its size, and it feels huge in my mouth. And
Yes.
and what I train myself to do is to just stop. Just stop. Take that pause. Take the breath and
Mhm.
settle into the word and into the sound.
Yes.
And if I stumble on it, if I stutter, just keep going. Chances are that it may not be noticeable. And so what? And so what? I've already declared to the world that I'm a stutterer, which took me a long time to be able to say publicly. That was
Yes.
always something I kept hidden.
Yes.
But now I feel it's a pride of claiming it and understanding there are millions of people who suffer from this as well and are in the shadows
Yes.
and are feel embarrassed and just sort of like outcasts. And there are people who've now come out to say, I'm proud of it. It's who I am. It's the way I speak.
Yes.
Um, Joe Biden had a speech impediment.
Mhm.
He was never able to fully overcome it. It
Right.
showed in some of his public addresses, but he knew it, but it didn't keep him from reaching the highest office of the land. So it's there, and it's embrace it, claim it, and use it as part of your identity.
So I'm curious because for me, as I do keynotes and presentations, even with all the interviews I do, especially on stage, I found if I blow it, I will say, by the way, take two, that's the stutter, and I'll do the old
Yeah.
Porky Pig kind of thing, and I'll get a good laugh because their tension goes up when I blow it. My tension goes up because I can feel the room going up, and now they're waiting for the next train wreck. I feel if I deflate it, it helps all of us. Have you found it to be true to kind of deflate the tension in the room?
Yes, I haven't been as courageous as you. That takes a lot of courage. And I guess, you know what? I'll make a pledge to you right now that if it comes out in a public address, that I will claim it, I will stop, and I will say, okay, I'm taking a take two. That was a stutter. And I've told you that I'm a stutterer. So there it is. In case you doubted that I am, there it is. Because
That's what
people
I get now. And you probably get the same thing. You're a great speaker. I've never heard you stutter. And you're thinking, I've
right.
got 10 times in the last speech I just did. I know I did.
Yes, yes. And sometimes, as you know, it's not exactly a stumble on a word or a sound. It could be repeating a word like two, 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 two,
Mhm.
right? And then I want two, 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 two. And and that is not as easily identifiable as if I were to say people. My real the sounds that still trip me up are P's and R's. And R's is my name has two R's. Rosemary Ravinal. Imagine. So
Why do our parents do that to us? My parents did the same thing. Richard Bontrager. Thanks. The R and the B. Thank you very much. Um,
yeah.
when it comes to stuttering, finding the voice, because a lot of stutterers I found, they want to sing, they want to act, they want to do things, but they're afraid to. Like you said, you kind of hit it. I hit it for a long time. I faked it. What can we say to the people that are trying to find their voice, but they don't know how to step out of that fear cycle or whatever it is?
Yes, yes. One thing that helped me greatly when I was taking voice therapy, they had me do the tongue twisters, right, and the animal sounds, and
Yeah,
reading children's stories.
yeah,
But it. I found later on, I sort of stumbled on this on my own. Recording yourself, record your voice,
yes.
record and listen back, and
Mm,
and see where there is that moment of hesitation before that word, and to see where I might have taken a breath, or where there might be a word substitution that will work better next time. So I started to use the recording and playback as my teaching tool. And another thing that's really important to convey to anyone who has any doubts about their value as a speaker is you have to love the sound of your voice, because we only have one voice. I mean,
yes.
unless we're going to be like a Mel Blanc and start to do voices in cartoons, we only have, and probably even the voice actors have one voice that they were born with.
Yes. Yes.
That's our voice is almost as unique as our fingerprints. Our voices are unique to us. So you, it's ours to use, in multitude of good ways. So you have to fall in love with it. And so many people say, I don't like to hear, I don't like the way I sound. Of course, we sound different in a recording than we
Yeah.
sound in our
Yeah.
heads, right?
Yes.
So it's,
Mhm.
oh, that's not me. That sounds terrible. Or you see yourself in video. It takes a lot of practice to be able to look at a recording and to say, oh, I had bags under my eyes. Oh, I shouldn't have moved my head so much. Oh, blah blah. You know what? Live with it. It's unless it's distracting or unless it's a nervous tick or something that doesn't serve your message. That's who you are. It's you have to embrace it. Even trained actors and famous people, because I've worked with a lot of celebrities during my career, are
Yeah.
very sort of self. They lack self confidence. They're hyper
Yes.
self critical. And so they are always looking for, was it the right angle, or did I come across? Can I do a second take on that, or uh, all kinds of questions and doubts about performance. It's you have to just do it. Every time you do it, you do a little playback. You say, I could have done a little better. I could have been more succinct, or maybe I could have used a more colorful reference, or I could have told a better story. It's that, the beauty of what we do is it's iterative. There's never an end point. You can get better each time you do it.
I do remember in broadcasting, as I stumbled and mumbled through the news, I can never get through the hard news. I'm just not a hard news guy. And the stutter got worse. But as I listened to myself, I did learn what my real voice sounded like versus the head voice. It was a
Mhm.
game changer for me. So playing those tapes was painful, but it was really good
Mhm.
medicine for me.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
I'm kind of curious. What was was there a defining moment in your stutter journey to say, I can feel myself breaking free, or did something happen? You said, I'm really letting go and going for my dreams. Was there something that happened?
It was that first radio interview,
It
which
was.
was not. I mean, it wasn't panacea afterwards. I mean, I had to work very hard to do the next one and the one after that and the one after that. It would come and go. There were moments. It was a lot. A lot had to do with my emotional state. If I
Mm,
was in a place of tremendous sense of self empowerment or confidence or high achievement, as they would call, I was in a high vibration space. I could get through it. But if there was a low point, there was disappointment and challenge and fear, I
mm,
found myself sort of gravitating back into the stutter space.
mm,
But it was, and I had, I remember being early in my career. I was in a meeting where I was my turn to speak, and I couldn't get the sound out. I was so deathly afraid of stumbling that
mhm,
it took me a while to be able to even make a sound. And
mm.
people were looking at me, and I had to quickly to sort of tap dance and say, "Oh, I have something in my throat. Excuse me, I have a cold," and just
Right.
make up something. But I finally, once I started speaking, I was okay. But I think it was a P word.
Mm,
and but then what I did was I added a preposition before it, so I didn't
mm.
have to start with the P word. So I started to rewrite what I wanted to say in my head.
That's what I tell a lot of people. My head's always cutting and pasting.
Yes.
And people don't understand how tiring that can be sometimes, but also it helps you navigate around. I tell people that I manage my stutter. It's never cured, it's never gone, but I've learned the management. Do you feel that way that you
Oh,
manage
yes.
your stutter?
Yes, 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 yes. Which is why I have to say that I'm accepting it proudly. It's part of who I am.
Yes.
And I found that my story, my journey helps other people because look, what is your stutter? Right? For me and for you, it was the speech disfluency. But for other
Mhm.
people, the stutter might be, horrifying fear, paralyzing
Right.
fear. Yeah.
Rosemary, this has been great. Here is your website coming on up. What are people going to find when they hit the QR code and jump to your website?
Well, they're going to find a lot of resources. They're going to find about 7 downloadable PDFs on everything from how to do a great Zoom meeting to how to handle difficult conversations to executive presence. So there's all these downloadable resources. You're going to find 150 blogs in my Master Communicator blog
Wow.
uh, that touch on everything from transitions to Q&As to running a good panel to overcoming fear. I think I've run out of topics. I kept trying to find new ones because I think I've covered so many of them already. And mind you, I did start in my blog during the time of COVID. So there's a lot of content on how to survive during the era of Zoom, how to manage your reputation, your brand on virtual meetings, how to look good, how to to speak clearly to a microphone and to work with a camera. So you're going to find that. You're going to find notices of something. For example, I have something that I've started, which is a Friday Ask Me Anything session live, 2 p.m. Eastern time, where people can come join my Zoom and ask whatever questions on their mind about public speaking. So there's a lot of resources. And of course, they can join my mailing list to receive these notices right away.
Wow, that's a lot going on. Plus, you got the new book in the works. You don't have a
Yes.
date or anything. Can you tease a
No.
little bit about the book a little bit?
It's really a sense of reflections. It's actually the chronicling my youth and my struggle with stuttering. A lot of exercises as to what I went through as a student with voice coaches. It's moments, anecdotes about my first steps into the arena of actually speaking. I went through 2 years as a child when I couldn't speak at all. But what broke the impasse, the silence, I told a joke. I told a joke to my classmates, and they laughed. And that was heaven opened up. Stars started to shine on me. It was a real breakthrough moment when I told a joke that they understood and they actually laughed.
That's cool. That's a great way to kind of land the plane here a little bit. Rosemary Ravinal, thank you very much for being with us on Rock the Stage. And thank you for helping us kick off the month of May for National Stutter Awareness. Besides all the other great stuff, it's an extra treat to be able to blend the two worlds together.
Thank you.
Rosemary Ravinal. And again, go to the website, check it out, and you want to learn more about what she's got going on. And every week on Rock the Stage Show, there's something new, something interesting, from the speakers to the actors to the writers to the creatives out there, and much, much more. We always say you never know who's going to show up Friday night, 7 p.m., or Sunday night, 7 p.m. at Rock the Stage Show. I just went back to 3 years in my head to a whole different time show. Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for Rock the Stage Show. Come on back and join us again. Until next time, be safe. Have a great week. I'm the Trigger Rich Bontrager. And we'll see you here for Rock the Stage Show.